Welcome, warriors, to another Ride in the Struggle Bus where every wheel is an empty triangle. Today we have another Road Rage video for you where we're going to be going over a very interesting fight that goes over some pretty important concepts and deals a lot with relative strength of groups and how we handle getting our groups stronger while making our opponents' groups weaker. This was taken from just a random game that I played on KGS, where I am 2K and my opponent is also 2K. So this one wasn't a league game, but had a very interesting fight in it, and so decided to take a dive into it. So let's take a look at how the game got to where we are right now. So here we are. I am white in this game, and it starts off easy enough. We go approach, and you'll notice that the fighting kind of starts pretty early. And honestly, I probably could have showcased this fight as well, but just want to show how this goes because the fight later in the game is also a cross-cut fight, which this one kind of started off well as well. So either way, we move along here, and we end up exchanging some stones. We give up those 3 stones for the capture here. And then our opponent plays a slow move, and we approach here. He does another slow move. We expand our corner. He jumps in here. And now the fight kind of starts brewing, and he goes back to connect. I'm not going to play a second line move. It's too early for that, so I cap his group. He connects, and then I go to surround, and he pushes Ihane, and he cuts. And this is where our fight begins today. So this is a very common type of fight where one person cross cuts the other. You know, I invited the fight when I played the Hane at G15, and my opponent said, "Yes, indeed, let's fight." And so when we start with a cross cut fight, generally what you want to do is you need to kind of take stock in the strengths and weaknesses of the groups involved. And when there's a cross cut, there's always going to be 2 groups for each player. So in this case, white has these 2 groups, and black has these 2 groups. And the first thing you want to do when you're in a cross-cut fight is determine which of your groups is weaker and determine which of your opponent's groups is weaker. And in this case, that's pretty easy to do because it's very obvious that this marked group for black is significantly stronger than his single stone, as is the case for white. This group here is significantly stronger than our 1 stone. So in these situations, when you're considering moves to play, you need to be considering moves that make your weakest group stronger while making your opponent's weakest group weaker. And so in this case, we're going to be doing something that strengthens our G15 stone. And we want to do it in a way that will limit pretty much liberties. Liberties is what we care about here. Limit the amount of liberties that this stone is going to have. It's worth noting, what we don't want to do is Atari, the cutting stone. Because what happens is when we do that, we force his weakest group to get stronger. And now there's a cut left behind. So it didn't actually make this stone any stronger. So now we feel compelled to connect, and we just gave him some free strength. So that is not a move we would consider. Normally we would consider extending, which is what I did in this game. And I extended this way to take a direction away from black. If black decides to go this way for whatever reason, he now has 1 less liberty. And so that's not what he's going to do. And so now it's black's turn to assess which of his groups is weaker. And I think it's pretty obvious that it's this 1 stone. And so he extends here. And so now it's back to our turn. And so we have to do the same assessment. Which of our groups is weaker now? Which of black's groups is weaker? And pretty much for the entirety of the fight, this black group here is considered too strong to attack. So we're never going to be attacking that. So it really comes down to the fight between this group and really this group, because our corner is pretty strong now. So that kind of gives away my line of thinking here. I see this as my weaker group, and so I'm going to play a move that strengthens this group. And again, we want to make sure we're playing a move that also weakens these 2 stones. So when I say strengthen the group, I don't mean something like playing this, to connect back. That isn't that isn't the Warriors' way. We are looking to play a move that also weakens our opponent, and so it's going to be something in this area. So we're going to be looking at shape, we're going to be looking at staying out ahead, and in this case, I decided to jump here. If black tries to cut, he's going to end up falling short on liberties, and so he can't really do that. So this is a pretty forceful move on his shape. So he pushes, and again, we're looking at this as our weakest group, and so we are going to make sure that this stays strong. This should be a pretty straightforward move. I imagine most of you are guessing that I'm going to be playing h11, and I did in fact play h11. And then our opponent extended one more time. And so now the question really becomes, we really want to play this Hane, right? If we can get away with this, this is what we want to play rather than just extending. So the question is our group strong enough to play this Hane? And at this point in time, I felt it was. Our group on the right here has really good shape. It's got a lot of liberties. It's got a lot of room to move around. There's the 07 stone that we can potentially run towards. And so I wasn't too concerned with this cut, especially since playing this Hane really limits the movement of this group and takes away liberty of the group. And so it's really going to be difficult for black in this point. So I did take this Hane, and our opponent jumped. And so we need to, again, make sure that we take care of our weakest group. And at this point, we also have to realize the fact that he can take this cut at any point in time. So we almost have to treat these two stones, these two groups, as two different groups. And so in doing that, I think it's pretty clear to see that B is stronger than A. And so I'm going to play a move that strengthens A while weakens black's weakest group. So in this case, I'm going to be looking at extending here, which threatens this cut, gets us more liberties, so we don't really care about this cut too much. And so we took this extension, and black played here. At this point, black looks like he's trying to get eye space. He's going to be looking to live on the side. And we don't want to make that too easy for him. Just like, this is a fight, but this is also an attack. We are attacking these stones. And, as with all attacks, we need to figure out, what's our profit going to be? And in this case, if we're able to block here, we get a really large corner. And if we're able to block on this side, it strengthens this corner. This corner does not have anywhere near as much potential as this corner does. So with that in mind, I was looking to play a move that threatens the development of eye space while also further developing this corner. And so I played this diagonal here. Hopefully you guys see why that limits black's movement while also growing the corner. And so black decided, well, if you're blocking me from going that way, then obviously I'm going to go this way. And so at this point, it's clear black's coming this way. He's going to want to try to come out. And the goal of this fight, of this attack, we're not looking to necessarily kill these stones. Again, we're just looking to get profit. And so in general, when that's your goal, you should be looking at surrounding your opponent, especially if you can do it in Sente. And so we could play a move like this to try to reduce his eye space. But this is a failure if black is able to run out, especially if he's able to run out while surrounding our group here. So this is not a move that I would consider right now. We need to make sure that we get some strength on the outside first. So with that in mind, I jumped out here. And this is a good shape move, right? We're coming off of 2 stones. So this is our typical shape move. We've got a large knight's move off of this stone, so that can be cut. This can also be cut. But we're in the position of strength here, and so black's got to be careful because when he cuts us, we're also cutting him. And so he did take this cut, and at this point, I wanted to build up some strength for this group. I thought that these 3 stones were strong enough as is, and so I wanted to make sure that this didn't become a liability. And so I decided to Atari his stone, which he obviously extended. And now we're back to figuring out which is our weakest group and which is his weakest group. And that's basically this whole fight is juggling that concept over and over again of where can we get strength for our groups while taking strength away from our opponent's weak groups. In this case, these 3 stones aren't terribly strong right now, but I decided to push on the outside just to take a liberty away from this group, which will really limit what he can do. Because when we do this, black only has 2 liberties, and our 2 stones here have 4. So it's going to be tough for him to do anything here. And so the best he could do was just extend. And at this point, though, these 3 stones are fairly weak. And so we're going to do something about that. And again, we're going to play a move that strengthens our group while weakening his weakest group. And I identified this as his weakest group. And so I ended up playing here, which takes a liberty away from him while also connecting our stones. And so here he turned this way to get strength for his weakest group. But at this point, we now got some strength here, right? This group is pretty strong, and it looks like we've started to surround his group here. And so now we can change targets because this group is strong enough that it's going to be tough to attack. But we have a strong group outside. We have a strong group here, and black has this to deal with. And so at this point, we can start transitioning into, can we actually kill this group now? And I go over this in a lot of videos and a lot of games that I play. If we're actually looking to kill a group, there are 3 steps that you generally want to do. And step 1 is surround the group first. And then step 2 is reduce their eye space. And then step 3 is hit their vital point. And so at this point, he's pretty much already surrounded. And so we can look at reducing his eye space and or hitting his vital point. And so, if I really followed the rules, I could have played a move like B8, which goes to take away his eye space. But I looked at this and there were a lot of options, just because of how weak black shape is with us having the C6 stone and the C13 stone. There are a lot of things that we can do in here to threaten to connect either way. So I ended up playing C10, which kind of acts as a vital point, right? We can see, if you're able to envision, what black would want to do, if we're placing stones, what black would want to do to get life. He's going to be playing moves like this. We're going to be playing moves as well. And it kind of looks like this is turning into a vital point, right? And so I just decided to hit that vital point early, also knowing that it threatens to connect up with C13 and it threatens to connect up with C7, and he can't really block both of them. And so he plays this way, and so I just extends to threaten to connect up to C8, which also takes away a liberty from black and takes away potential eye space. And so now he pushes here. He looks to escape on the outside now. And so now we just need to make sure that we maintain our good shape and our strength. So we already have a diagonal here, right? So these 2 stones are, for all intents and purposes, already connected because black can't take away both of these spots. So what we really need to do is we really need to make sure that this group doesn't get separated from this group. And so that's what led me to play here, which connects up here. And again, this is already connected. And black plays this move, and there's only one move here. We have to play this. And now black plays here, which threatens to kill these 2 stones. But are those stones important? Do these stones have any bearing on this fight at all if our target is this group? These stones, they aren't important to this fight. We can let them go. But if this group dies, then obviously that's terrible. And so we can force black to capture these stones while getting strength for this group. And so that's exactly what I chose to do. And I sacrificed these 2 stones. So then I played here, which forced black to capture. And now at this point, he has another group that can potentially be surrounded and killed because it only has 1 eye. And again, we're not looking to kill this, but it has weaknesses that we can use. And at this point, I didn't see how this group inside was going to live. So I decided as long as this group stays strong and does not die, these stones probably should die. And even if they don't, it's okay. We're getting some big profit up here. We're getting some big profit on the left side. So we probably don't even need to kill this group. But so with all that in mind, I decided to play here just to give us, an easier way to connect to this group over here. This, looking back afterwards, this is a mistake. This group is likely strong enough to handle its own, and we probably should have just made sure that this group was completely dead. With looking potentially at a move like this, just to really reduce this group's movement. But the intent of these videos is go over what I see in fights when I play them. So I played this to threaten to connect, and so he played this Hane. And if you remember, we've got these stones that were threatening to connect with c6 or c13. He kind of blocked off c6, so I decided, well, let's go connect to the c13 stone, and I played here. And at this point, black needs to fix this cut, and so that is what he does. And he does so in a way that threatens the weakness of this shape. When I played this diagonal, I know that there's a weakness in this shape. And if we ignore this and play something like this, black is able to cut us off. And so we can't let that cut happen. And so we have to play the somewhat sad-looking move of this empty triangle that also happens to be a bamboo joint. It's not the best shape, but it does block that cut. So that was the intent of this. And again, if we keep this group strong and we're able to surround, then this group should be dead. And so at this point, black is looking to run out. And so we do have to admit that this group right now, not very strong, right? Black is also acknowledging this is white's weakest group. This is black's weakest group. He's going to play a move that makes his group stronger while making my group weaker. And so it is pretty clear now that this is our weakest group and we have to do something about it. And this move should be pretty straightforward. We just decided to keep on running out. Again, just to keep his group surrounded. And then he pushed again. And at this point in time, I was trying to figure out, can I get away with this Hane, right? The Hanes are always, they're really strong. They're really strong, but they continue and or start fights, right? And so by playing this Hane, it leaves a cut behind. And so we have to make sure that we're okay with this cut before we play this Hane. But this Hane really does aim to just kill this group. And at this point in the fight, I am pretty much looking at killing something, be it this group or even just this stone. I think any of that would be a success for white here. And so that's what I was looking at, is again, this center group only has one eye, so if we surround that, it dies. This group, I don't see it getting two eyes, so if we successfully surround that, it dies. And then if we get strength here and they end up living, then we can probably play something like h3 to kill the f3 stone. So that's what I'm looking at when I see this fight. I see lots of weak groups for black, and I see really only one weak group for white. And so as long as we manage this, we're okay. So I did play the Hane here, and black, very unsurprisingly, took this cut. And so at this point, and pretty much for the rest of the fight, this is our only weak group now. This is what we have to take care of. We already played m9 to make this group about as solid as it's going to be. This corner should be okay, and obviously this side is very strong. So it's really just this group. And so while I said at the beginning that we generally don't want to Atari cutting stones because it creates a cut here, in this case I'm able to protect the cut by moving in the direction I want to go. And so I played this sequence. I did Atari and he connected, and I jumped out just to move out while threatening to surround this group, because remember, we've got a target here as well. So that's what this was. I was looking to run out to potentially connect, because if this group connects and lives, then black's going to die. And so black threatens to cut, but this doesn't work. I had read this beforehand. We did play knight's move, which can be cut, and obviously with him playing here, we have to block. And that threatens to kill this stone. He can't cut because then the stone dies. So we are safe to connect here. So he connects and we connect. It's the only move we can play. We can't get cut off, else we're going to die. And so now black realizes that if this group gets surrounded, it's going to die. And so he goes to strengthen that. And so now this group, might not be the weakest group. And our group here is still somewhat weak. And so I was looking at, what other group of blacks is potentially weak. And in this case, now these 3 stones. These 3 stones are potentially weak. And so we can use them to get strength, continue getting strength for our group. And that's really what it all comes down to, is maintain the strength of this group, and then everything will be okay. So I ended up playing h3 here to go after these stones. We're not going to be able to kill them. Black can connect underneath, but in doing that, we're going to get strength for our group. And that's really what this is all about, is just maintaining strength. And so black decided to go this way, and that's fine. We just extended, because obviously at this point now our corner isn't terribly strong, and we can't go killing his group if we've got a weakness here. And so we extend here, and then black extends again. And at this point, I kind of play a not good move. So let's just kind of brush past this one. I was looking at this cut here and wanted to connect up these stones, but there's really no excuse. It's just not a good move. I ended up playing the power triangle. Remember, when you play it, it's a power triangle. When your opponent plays it, it's an empty triangle. It's a very important distinction. By the way, black blocks, and we need to do something with this group, and so now we're just going to connect underneath. We had this in our back pocket for a while, right? We could have either taken the corner or connected up underneath. So we connected up underneath, and black pushed, and we are going to continue to stay connected. And then black takes this Hane here. And there are a couple options. We can consider the bamboo joint. We can consider just playing here to threaten to kill this stone and connect up. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up playing here to threaten that. Our opponent threw in, and we captured, and then he Atari'd, and we connected. This is all forced, right? There's nothing I can do about it. I expected him to play here, and then we were going to connect this way, because this doesn't give me any points. But when he plays this and we capture, we actually get a point for this. So that's fine. And we connect, and he Atari's again, and we connect. But now we're fully connected, and black has an eye, kinda. We'll get back to that. But it sure looks like black has an eye here. Okay. And so he threatens to come out. I don't think I need to justify or explain why I played what I played here. I blocked him from running. And then he came back and played here. And at this point, he's surrounded. As long as he does not get 2 eyes, he is dead. And while this looks like an eye, it isn't. We can throw in, which obviously threatens to capture, so he can't let us do that. And if he captures, we have this Atari. And so all of a sudden, he no longer has an eye. And so I knew if we were able to maintain Sente that I could always just come back and get this eye. And so I just needed to make sure that he didn't get an eye here in Sente. And so I just played this Atari. Because if he connects here, there's no eye here anymore. And there's certainly not 2 of them. Then we can come back and take out this. But that's not what he did. He played here. And so again, there really isn't an eye here. And with this being an Atari, he has to spend another move to fix here. And so I decided now was the time to go and remove this eye. And so I played here. He did capture. We did Atari. And he connected here. And then we did end up finishing off by capturing here, because I didn't want this cut. I knew that there was potentially a Ko here. And so I just wanted to be connected. And I knew that if I killed this group, that I was winning the game. And so even though he potentially died in Gote here, committing the sin, I didn't want him, if we played away, I didn't want him to get this Atari into something like this. I didn't want to get at all involved in a Ko. And this was what I saw. And so I decided to just capture this stone. And then he played here. But now he kind of died in Gote, because he doesn't have any eyes. And if he captures this, it's not a Ko, I just connect. And so now we're back to what's my weakest group, right? he's surrounded, and we've got this group that's still not necessarily the strongest, so let's go make this group stronger. And there's a pretty obvious weakness in this group. There's a cut here, right? And so we should probably be looking at protecting the cut. And we can do that a number of ways. We can play a tiger's mouth. We can just connect directly, and that's what I ended up doing. I didn't want to give him any Aji with poking at my shape, so I decided to just connect here. I probably could have been a little more aggressive and played this, because we really actually don't care about this peep at all. And this gets out a little faster to potentially surround his group. But either way, we did end up connecting, and then black plays here. And at this point, black tries some desperation, but you can tell that this group is going to end up dying. It doesn't have two eyes. It's fully surrounded. It's not going to win any kind of liberty race against this. So just as long as we don't fall for any shenanigans over here and let something die here, black is just dead. And that's what ended up happening. Again, he just kind of plays some desperate moves. We really don't need to get to it at this point in time, because unless I blunder, this fight is over. I thought this one was a really interesting one to go over, because cross fights, they're tricky. They're probably some of the fights that I normally have the most trouble with, because there are so many factors versus just doing some simple reading to see what life and death works. It's just like this fight kind of sprawls everywhere. But it's an important concept to understand about how to navigate those fights. And so I thought this was a good one to go over. So hopefully you guys know a little bit more about how to handle cross fights, and also importantly, know when to give up stones that are not important to the fight, because this was the key to the whole thing. If I had tried to save these stones here, then things turn out to be pretty bad for us, I think. And so it's important that we understand that we can strategically give up some stones in order to kill groups. So that is where we're going to leave this one today. Thank you guys for coming out for another Ride in Struggle Bus Where Every Wheel is an Empty Triangle. Have a good one, guys.